My name is Haley Richardson. I'm 38 years old, and the day I bought my oceanfront villa, I truly believed my life was finally beginning. I stood barefoot in the middle of the great room, cardboard boxes still half opened around me, the smell of fresh wood and salt water mingling in the air. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the Pacific like a living painting. Waves rolled in below the cliffs of Monterey Bay, steady and patient, as if they'd been waiting for me to arrive. For years, this view had lived only in my imagination. I'd worked 80-hour weeks as a software architect in Silicon Valley, grinding through nights that blurred into mornings. I skipped vacations. I said no to dinners, to weekends, to anything that wasn't work. While others upgraded apartments and chased trends, I stayed in a cramped studio with peeling paint and a heater that screamed all night, telling myself it was temporary. This house was the reward. A $2.8 million oceanfront villa perched high above the water, built for silence, for healing, for space to breathe. I wanted mornings without noise, evenings without demands, a life where I didn't have to be needed by everyone else. I was setting my phone down on the granite island when it rang. Vanessa. I didn't smile. My sister had never called just to say hello. I answered anyway. Haley, she said, skipping the greeting entirely. We're on our way. My stomach tightened. Who's we? There will be 18 of us, she continued briskly, as if reading off a grocery list. Prepare beds, towels, robes, food. We'll be staying for 4 weeks. 4 weeks. My heart slammed against my ribs. Vanessa, I will be there in an hour, she added, so hurry up. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, my reflection warped in the black screen. 18 people, 4 weeks. My sanctuary, my lifelong reward, about to become her personal resort. Instead of panic, a strange calm spread through me, the kind that comes right before something breaks. I smiled. Not because I was amused, because somewhere deep inside, something had already decided this wouldn't end the way it always had. I set the phone down slowly, my hands shaking despite myself. Outside, the ocean stretched endlessly, blue and indifferent. Seagulls cried overhead, but all I could hear was her voice. Prepare beds, towels, robes, food. It hadn't been a request. It never was. Growing up, Vanessa snapped her fingers and the world adjusted. And if it didn't, she made sure someone paid the price. Usually me. When she wanted my new jeans in high school, she borrowed them and never returned them. When she needed rent money in her 20s, I wired it without hesitation. Just $2,000, Haley, she'd pleaded. I'll pay you back as soon as my modeling gig clears. It never did. When her credit cards maxed out, she called me. When her BMW broke down, she called me. When her son wanted the newest sneakers, she called me. And every time, I told myself it was temporary. Family comes first. I'd repeated that lie so often it sounded like truth. The worst of it came when her daughter got into USC. I'd been saving diligently, watching every dollar, inching closer to a down payment on a home I could call my own. Vanessa, meanwhile, lived lavishly. Designer bags, spa weekends in Napa, Cabo trips with friends. Then tuition came due. Haley, she'd said softly over lattes one afternoon, her manicured hand clasping mine. You're the responsible one. You have money. Just this once. I paid. Not for her. For my niece. And then there was the wedding. The Ritz-Carlton ballroom. Flowers flown in from Holland. A Vera Wang gown that cost more than my car. She hadn't had the money. But she had me. Now, standing in my villa, surrounded by unopened boxes and fresh possibility, the pattern was impossible to ignore. It had never been love. It was entitlement. The low rumble of engines snapped me back to the present. I walked to the window. My stomach dropped. 6 vehicles pulled into my circular driveway like a coordinated invasion. Vanessa's black Escalade led the way, followed by a Range Rover, 2 Suburbans packed tight, a pickup stacked with coolers and beach chairs, and a minivan with luggage strapped to the roof. Dust rose as tires crunched over imported Italian stone. Laughter erupted. Doors slammed. Someone shouted, "This place is insane!" And then I saw her. Vanessa stepped out of the Escalade, oversized Chanel sunglasses perched on her nose, blonde hair whipping dramatically in the coastal wind. She looked like she was arriving at a premiere. "Haley," she called, arms wide. "Look at this paradise. You lucky, lucky girl." I didn't move. The pounding on the door came seconds later. "Come on, sis, open up. We drove 6 hours. I opened the door just enough to meet her smile. "I told you I'm not ready for guests." She didn't slow down. She shoved the door open and brushed past me, Chanel number 5 flooding the air as bodies poured in behind her. Suitcases rolled across my marble floors. Coolers scraped against walls. Sandy footprints smeared my pristine entryway. "This kitchen is massive. Check out that pool." "Is this real?" "Stop," I said, my voice shaking. "You can't just—" No one listened. Vanessa spun in the foyer like she owned it. "Isn't it perfect?" she announced. "Just like I told you. My sister always knew how to live large." My sister, like a title, like a claim. She glanced at the floating staircase. "The master suite's upstairs, right? I'll take that one." My chest tightened. "No." She turned, sliding her sunglasses down. "Don't be selfish. You've got plenty of space." In that moment, I understood something with terrifying clarity. She hadn't come to visit. She'd come to take. And this time, I wasn't sure silence would save me. Vanessa didn't wait for my answer. She started up the stairs as if my hesitation were permission, her heels clicking against the polished oak, each step sounding like a countdown. Her friends followed with the casual confidence of people who had already decided this place belonged to them. I stood frozen at the base of the staircase, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure everyone could hear it. "Vanessa," I said, forcing my voice steady, "we need to talk." She waved a hand over her shoulder without turning around. "Later, Haley. Let everyone settle in first." Settle in. As if this were a hotel lobby. A man I didn't recognize cracked open a beer right there in my living room, foam spilling dangerously close to the edge of my white stone counter. Someone else dragged a cooler across the floor, the scraping sound sending a jolt of anger through my spine. "This place is unreal," a woman laughed, snapping photos of my kitchen. "You're so lucky." Lucky. I wanted to scream. I followed Vanessa upstairs, each step heavier than the last. The hallway smelled faintly of fresh paint and ocean air. My sanctuary, still untouched, still mine. At least it had been. She threw open the double doors to my master suite. Sunlight flooded the room, illuminating the king-sized bed, the soft gray linens I'd chosen after weeks of deliberation, the private balcony overlooking the bay. The water outside shimmered, calm and endless. "This is perfect," one of her friends squealed, dragging a Louis Vuitton suitcase straight across my hardwood floor. "The lighting is amazing. My stories are going to blow up." "No," I said sharply, stepping into the doorway. "Nobody is staying in here." Vanessa finally turned to face me, slowly removing her sunglasses. Her eyes were cold, assessing, the way they always got when she sensed resistance. "Haley," she said, exasperated, "don't be dramatic." "I'm serious," I replied, planting myself between her and the bed. "This is my private space." She laughed, short and dismissive. "You have 5 other bedrooms. Why are you acting like this?" "Because this is my house." The room went quiet for a fraction of a second, like a breath being held. Then Vanessa stepped closer, invading my space. I could smell her perfume, sharp and expensive. "You think buying this place makes you better than me?" she sneered. "You think money changes who's in charge here?" Behind her, her friends exchanged glances, amused, uncomfortable, entertained. Spectators to a drama they didn't belong in. "I earned this," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "Every inch of it." Her lips curled into a familiar smirk. "Family comes first." "Not this again." "Family doesn't demand," I shot back. "Family doesn't barge in with 18 people and take over someone's home." She tilted her head, studying me like a puzzle. After everything I've done for you? That almost made me laugh. Everything she'd done for me. I remembered late nights wiring money, canceled trips, savings drained quietly so she could keep pretending everything was fine. I remembered swallowing resentment because it was easier than conflict. But standing there, in my own bedroom, watching strangers touch my things, something inside me finally snapped into focus. You didn't do this for me, I said quietly. You did it because you thought you could. Her smile faltered, just for a second. Then one of her friends spoke up. Come on, Haley, don't ruin the vibe. It's just a room. Another voice chimed in. Yeah, you're being kind of intense. A man leaned against my dresser, beer in hand, leaving a wet ring on the surface. Relax, we're all family here. No, I said, louder now. You're not. The word echoed. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. Watch it. I turned to the others, my hands shaking. This isn't a vacation rental. You weren't invited, and you don't get to decide how my home is used. Someone scoffed. Someone else laughed nervously. Vanessa stepped even closer, lowering her voice so only I could hear. You don't have the guts to do anything about this. Her words hit like gasoline on a fire I'd been suppressing for years. Yes, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. I do. The room erupted. Is she serious? She's crazy. Wow, talk about ungrateful. Vanessa's face hardened. You're making a huge mistake. I looked around my bedroom, my bed now blocked by a suitcase, my closet doors open, my clothes being rifled through like props. Something ancient and exhausted rose in my chest. Get out, I said. Silence. All of you, I repeated, my voice shaking but unyielding. Get out of my room. Get out of my house. For the first time, Vanessa looked uncertain. Then she laughed, sharp and cruel. You hear that? She said to her friends. She's bluffing. She tossed her suitcase onto my bed. That was it. Years of compromise. Years of guilt. Years of being the easy sister. Take it off, I said quietly. She blinked. What? Take your suitcase off my bed. Oh, Haley, she said sweetly. Learn to share. Family helps family, remember? Isn't that what Mom always said? The room murmured in agreement. My jaw clenched so tightly it hurt. Family doesn't invade, I snapped. And family doesn't treat someone's home like a free hotel. Vanessa's confidence wavered again. Just a crack. Then she leaned in close, her voice icy. If you do anything stupid, you'll regret it. You'll lose me. You'll lose all of us. The old fear flared, the one that whispered I'd end up alone. But another voice rose louder. Better alone than used. I didn't respond. I turned and walked out of the master suite, ignoring the laughter and scoffs behind me. She won't do anything, Vanessa called after me. She never does. I walked down the hall, my heart racing, and shut myself into my home office. The heavy oak door closed with a decisive click. I locked it. For the first time since they arrived, the noise dulled. My breath came in shaky bursts as I leaned against the desk, staring at my phone. Could I really do this? A loud crash from downstairs answered for me. The unmistakable sound of glass shattering, followed by laughter. My sanctuary was being destroyed. My thumb hovered over the screen. Then I dialed. 911, what's your emergency? There are people in my home who refuse to leave, I said, my voice trembling but steady. They forced their way in. As I gave my address, I realized something with startling clarity. This wasn't about a house. It was about finally choosing myself. The operator's voice stayed calm as I explained everything. How they'd arrived without permission, how they'd refused to leave, how my house was being treated like a party rental I'd never agreed to list. Officers are on the way, she said. Stay in a secure room. I thanked her and ended the call, my fingers stiff as I set the phone down. The silence inside the office was deceptive. I could still hear them outside, footsteps pounding across marble, drawers slamming, laughter echoing up the staircase. Every sound felt like a violation, each one reminding me that my home was no longer under my control. A knock came at the door, light at first, almost polite. Haley, Vanessa called, her voice suddenly warm, syrupy. Come on, don't do this. I didn't answer. The knock grew harder. Let's talk like adults, she continued. You're overreacting. Another voice, male, mocking, cut in. She totally called the cops, didn't she? Laughter followed. My stomach twisted, but I stayed silent, my back pressed to the desk, my eyes fixed on the framed photo sitting beside my laptop. It was old. Our parents at the beach, years before everything went wrong. They were smiling, sunburned, happy. Back when family still meant something simple. The doorknob rattled. Haley, Vanessa snapped, her tone shifting. Open this door, now. I closed my eyes. Growing up, that tone had always worked. It meant consequences. It meant guilt. It meant I would eventually cave just to restore peace. But peace had always come at my expense. I know you're in there, she said sharply. If you do this, you'll regret it. I felt the familiar tightening in my chest, the old fear of being cut off, of being labeled difficult, selfish, ungrateful. Vanessa had always been the gatekeeper of family approval. If she decided I was the villain, the rest followed. You'll lose me, she continued, her voice lowering. You'll lose everyone, and then what? You'll be alone in this big, empty house. Her words landed exactly where she intended. For a moment, doubt crept in. I thought of quiet nights here, just me and the sound of waves. No laughter, no shared meals, no one to notice if I disappeared. Then another thought followed, steady and unafraid. I'd been alone for years. I'd just never had the peace to go with it. A sudden crash from downstairs snapped my attention back. Glass again. Followed by cheers. That was it. I unlocked the office door and stepped into the hallway. Vanessa stood a few feet away, arms crossed, her face already rearranged into wounded concern. There you are, she said softly. See? We can talk. I looked past her. People lounged on my sofa. Beer cans littered my counter. Someone had draped a wet towel over the back of a dining chair I'd waited 6 weeks to have custom made. This ends now, I said. Vanessa sighed theatrically. Haley, don't be like this in front of everyone. Everyone shouldn't be here. A few heads turned. Conversations quieted. You embarrassed me, she hissed under her breath. Do you have any idea how this makes me look? I almost laughed. I don't care how it makes you look, I replied. I care about my home. Her eyes hardened. You always were dramatic, and you always took what wasn't yours. The words slipped out before I could stop them. The room went still. Vanessa stared at me, shocked, not by the accusation, but by the fact that I'd said it out loud. That's not fair, she said quickly. After everything I've done for you. Name one thing, I said. She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. I supported you, she said finally, emotionally. I let out a bitter breath. You called me when you needed money, when you needed help, when you needed someone to clean up your mess. People shifted uncomfortably. Vanessa laughed, sharp and defensive. Wow, so this is what it's about? You're resentful? Yes, I said simply. I am. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. You think calling the police is going to fix this? You think they'll side with you over family? I don't care who they side with, I said. I care that you leave. Her smile turned thin. You don't have proof you didn't invite us. I have the deed, I replied. And I have witnesses who heard you demand access. Her confidence flickered again. Then sirens wailed in the distance. Every head snapped toward the windows. Vanessa's eyes widened for just a split second before she masked it with a laugh. You didn't. I did. The house erupted. What the hell? She actually called the cops? This is insane. Vanessa grabbed my arm, nails digging into my skin. You're doing this to hurt me. I pulled away. I'm doing this to protect myself. The sirens grew louder. Panic rippled through the group. People scrambled to gather their things, suddenly aware that this wasn't a game anymore. Vanessa straightened, her face tightening into something cold and calculating. You think you've won, she said quietly, but you've just made an enemy. I met her gaze, my heart pounding but my voice steady. You've always been one. A heavy knock thundered at the front door. Police, open up. The house fell silent. Vanessa rushed forward, plastering on her most charming smile as she opened the door. "Officers! Thank goodness you're here." 2 officers stepped inside, their eyes immediately scanning the chaos. Open suitcases, beer cans, scuffed floors. "We received a call about trespassing," the older one said calmly. "Who made the call?" "I did," I said, stepping forward. "This is my home." Vanessa turned, incredulous. "Haley." "Ma'am," the younger officer said, cutting her off. "Please step back." I handed over the folder I'd prepared. The deed, my ID, proof of purchase. The older officer reviewed it, nodding. "This checks out." Vanessa laughed nervously. "This is a misunderstanding. She invited us." "I didn't," I said, and I asked them to leave multiple times. The younger officer looked around again, her gaze lingering on the mess. "Ma'am, do you want these individuals removed from your property?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. "All of them." Gasps filled the room. Vanessa's face drained of color. "Haley, don't do this." "I already have." The officer turned to the group. "You have 20 minutes to collect your belongings and vacate the premises. If anyone remains after that, they will be arrested for trespassing." The house exploded into frantic movement. Vanessa stood frozen, staring at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. "You'll regret this," she whispered. I didn't answer. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to. The officers didn't raise their voices. They didn't need to. Authority filled the room in a way Vanessa never could. 20 minutes. That was all they were given. The countdown began the moment the words left the officer's mouth. Panic spread through the house like smoke. People rushed upstairs, voices overlapping, zippers whining as suitcases were yanked open and slammed shut. Someone cursed loudly when they realized their shoes were missing. Another woman accused her boyfriend of losing her charger. Chaos, raw and undignified. Vanessa stood perfectly still in the foyer. Her fists were clenched so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Her jaw trembled, not with fear, but with fury held barely in check. She wasn't used to being cornered. She wasn't used to consequences. She turned to me slowly. "You didn't have to humiliate me like this," she said, low and venomous. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt something surprising. Not anger, not guilt. Clarity. "You humiliated yourself," I replied. "You just assumed I'd let you." The younger officer lingered nearby, her sharp eyes tracking the movement of guests hauling bags down the stairs. She gave Vanessa a look that said she'd seen this story before, and it never ended well for the person making demands. Vanessa scoffed. "Enjoy your empty house," she muttered. "That's all you'll have left." I didn't respond. She stormed upstairs, heels striking the steps like gunfire. I watched her go, my heart hammering, half expecting some last-minute stunt. But for once, the house didn't bend around her will. I walked through the villa slowly as the minutes ticked by. Beer cans clinked into trash bags. Coolers scraped across the floor again, this time heading out. Sandy footprints smeared wider paths across marble that would take hours to clean. Every step felt surreal. This was happening. In the master bedroom, Vanessa yanked her suitcase off my bed with unnecessary force. She avoided looking at me as she shoved clothes inside, folding nothing, tossing everything like it was already trash. Her friends hovered awkwardly in the doorway, whispering, suddenly unsure whose side they were on, now that the illusion of power had shattered. One woman muttered, "This is insane," under her breath. Another shot me a glare. "You could have just talked it out." I met her gaze. I tried. Downstairs, a loud crash echoed, someone knocking over a chair in their hurry to leave. The older officer's voice cut through the noise, calm but firm. 5 minutes. Vanessa zipped her suitcase closed and dragged it past me without a word. In the foyer, the scene was chaos and resentment. People lined up with bags, muttering complaints, casting dirty looks my way as if I were the villain for refusing to be invaded. Vanessa stopped at the door. She turned back one last time. "This isn't over," she said softly, her voice shaking now, not with anger, but wounded pride. "You think this makes you strong? You just proved you're selfish." I stepped forward, meeting her eye to eye. "No," I said. I proved I'm done. The officers escorted the last few stragglers out. One by one, they passed through my front door, my door, until only Vanessa remained. She hesitated, scanning the space like she was committing it to memory, or maybe plotting how to reclaim it. Then she walked out. The door closed behind her with a sound so final it sent a shiver through me. Silence fell, like a held breath finally released. The officers stayed a moment longer, confirming everyone was gone. If they return, the older officer said gently, call us immediately. I will, I replied. They left shortly after, their presence fading with the sound of their boots on stone. I stood alone in the foyer. My house, no longer crowded, no longer loud, felt cavernous. For a moment, doubt tried to creep in. Had I gone too far? The quiet answered for me. I walked through each room slowly, my footsteps echoing where laughter had been just minutes before. I picked up discarded bottles, towels, shoes left behind in the chaos. In the kitchen, I wiped sticky rings off the counter with trembling hands. In the master bedroom, I smoothed my bedspread where Vanessa's suitcase had crushed the fabric. The sight of it made my chest tighten, not from anger, from grief. I'd lost something today, not my house. My illusion. The illusion that my sister would ever see me as anything but a resource. I stepped onto the balcony, the air cool against my skin. The sun hung low over the bay, painting the water in gold and rose. Waves rolled in, steady and unbothered by human drama. I breathed deeply, the knot in my chest loosening just a little. My phone buzzed, then buzzed again, and again. Vanessa's name filled the screen, followed by messages, too many to read. Accusations, pleas, threats, guilt dressed as love. I turned the phone face down. Tonight wasn't about her. It was about me reclaiming something I'd never been allowed to keep. Peace. I poured myself a glass of wine and carried it outside, settling into a teak chair as the sky darkened. The silence felt heavy, but it was honest. For the first time in decades, no one needed anything from me, and that felt terrifying and freeing. As night settled over the water, I realized something else. This wasn't the end of the story. Vanessa wouldn't let it be. But for the first time, neither would I. I barely slept that night. Every sound made me sit up in bed. The hum of the refrigerator, the wind brushing the balcony doors, the distant crash of waves against the cliffs. My body was still wired for intrusion, braced for the moment someone would decide my peace was negotiable again. But no one came. When morning light crept through the curtains, pale and tentative, I opened my eyes and lay still, listening. Nothing. Just the ocean. I got out of bed slowly, half expecting to see evidence of them still there. Suitcases by the door, someone asleep on the couch, Vanessa's voice cutting through the quiet with another demand. Instead, the house was empty, truly empty. I padded through the villa barefoot, the marble cool under my feet. The damage was minor in the grand scheme of things. A few scuffed floors, sticky countertops, fingerprints smeared on glass. But each mark felt symbolic, proof that even when they were gone, they left traces behind. I cleaned methodically, not because I needed to, because I wanted to reclaim every inch. As I wiped down the kitchen island, my phone buzzed again. Vanessa. Still. I didn't look. I wasn't ready to let her voice back into my head. I carried a box of abandoned items to the garage. Flip-flops, a charger, a beach towel someone had forgotten in their rush to escape consequences. I stacked them neatly, labeling the box with a single word: return. Not forgive, not forget, just return. Around noon, my phone rang again, but this time it wasn't her. It was Mark, my boyfriend. He'd been away on a work trip, unreachable when everything had unfolded. I hesitated before answering, suddenly unsure how to explain what had happened without sounding unhinged. Hey, I said softly. Hey, he replied, concern already threaded through his voice. I just landed. I've been trying to reach you since last night. Are you okay? I looked out at the ocean, the sunlight dancing across the water. I am now, I said, and I meant it. I told him everything. The call, the convoy, the master bedroom, the police. He was quiet for a long moment when I finished. "She did all that?" he finally asked. "Yes." "And you stood your ground?" "I did." I braced myself for doubt, for questions, for the gentle suggestion that maybe I'd gone too far. Instead, he said, "I'm proud of you." My throat tightened. "No one ever says that," I whispered. "Well," he replied, "they should." When the call ended, I felt something settle inside me. Not validation, something deeper. Permission, maybe, to stop questioning myself. By late afternoon, the villa looked like mine again. I showered, changed into clean clothes, and opened every window, letting the sea air flush out the stale scent of perfume and alcohol. The house breathed with me, quiet and vast and patient. Then my phone buzzed again. This time, I looked. A long message from Vanessa. She accused me of betrayal, of choosing money over family, of humiliating her in front of people who mattered. She reminded me of every favor she'd ever done for me, most of them imagined, some wildly distorted. And at the end, she wrote, "Don't expect me to forgive you." I stared at the screen, waiting for the familiar ache. It didn't come. Instead, I typed back a single sentence. "I'm not asking you to." Then I blocked her. The finality of it sent a shock through my body, sharp, electric, terrifying. And then, relief. I didn't know what would happen next. I knew she would talk. She would twist the story, paint herself as the victim, recruit allies. Some family members would believe her. Some wouldn't. I couldn't control that anymore. What I could control was this. That evening, I poured a glass of wine and stepped onto the balcony as the sun dipped below the horizon. The sky burned orange and violet, the water reflecting every color like it was offering them back to me. I raised my glass, not in celebration exactly, in acknowledgement, to the years I'd lost trying to earn love that was conditional, to the silence I'd mistaken for loneliness, to the woman I'd been before, useful, agreeable, invisible, and to the woman standing here now. This house wasn't just a purchase. It was a boundary made of stone and glass and resolve. It was proof that I could build something for myself and protect it. As darkness settled over the bay, the waves kept rolling in, steady and unbothered. They didn't ask permission. They didn't apologize for taking up space. Neither would I. The next morning, I woke to sunlight and quiet. No demands, no guilt, just the sound of water and the certainty that, for the first time in decades, I had kept something that was mine.